have the DC breaker box mounted, charge controller mounted. Power wires run up over into the battery box. Okay, and on this side here, we got the 2-aught coming in. This is the wire that goes to the inverter right here. It goes into a 400 amp fuse, and then it runs up over into a wire. It's a little bit smaller, which is 1-aught, which is weird because you have a 2000 watt inverter. You should have at least 2-aught all the way. So this short wire right here we're actually going to eliminate, and we're going to use some of this 2-aught here and put on there. Just to make it proper. We got the battery shunt mounted. I've got to redo the bulkhead area here. They had everything run in, and he had to put the wire loom on there because they had just wire going through bare metal. The data cable for the inverter was like that, and as you can tell, it's run in through a hole with no kind of protection on the hole. So we're going to be using big pass-throughs, run the power cables for the inverter through the side, that way they're tied off. And we're going to do something here with the other cables that runs through to secure them, make sure they're safe. But we got to get everything wired in, wired into the shunt. The negative side of the cable was entirely too long. Same thing even with the positive cable, too long. What they did is ordered pre-made cables and just put them in, and all that extra length was just laying in here. Just extra wire vibrating could cause a problem. Nothing was fastened down in here. As you see, when I pulled the battery out, this is what I came across. So definitely got to fix it. Okay, on this side, I did some rewiring here. Okay, he has 2-aught coming into the fuse, and now we have 2-aught coming from the fuse to the batteries. Before, they had 1-aught. They had a smaller wire going from the battery to the fuse. You don't go smaller on wire. So I put number 2 in, 2-aught in. His jumper wire, that's what they had for the jumper wire before. I have number 2 going on the jumpers, 2-aught. This is number 2. A lot of people say, oh, you can use number 2 as a jumper. They don't take in consideration this. You can use number 2, yes, if you're using number 2 and everything else. We have 2-aught for the inverter and everything else. So we're pulling all that power through 2-aught. Okay, and then you have a jumper. You have too small of a wire that's creating a higher resistance. He said when it was charging, this would always get really hot. So we took that out. Now we have 2-aught in here for the jumper. You have to use the same wire size jumper as you are using for your cables, because you're still pulling a lot of power through here. So now all of it is wired up like it should be. I have to hook up the shunt to the meter itself. I haven't done that yet. We'll get that all done, and then this portion is done. I've already come through. As you can tell, my battery wires for the inverter are run separate. They're run through bulkheads all the way through. I have the wire to run back to the converter. I have it here. I'll show you more about how this is going to be sealed watertight with no problems. I've already got them run in. So tomorrow what I'm going to do is get the rest of this wire fastened all up under the undercarriage, all the way up, drilled in all the way up through the converter box, and then I will go through and unhook what they have in here and wire it correctly, so therefore he won't have the issue. So with this wired correctly, with the correct size jumper that matches the rest of the wires, the jumper won't get as hot and he won't have the issue. I do have to come in and kind of move the cable a little, because as you see right here, it's right here on this post. So I do have to rotate this just a little bit so it doesn't do that. I do have to, the solar charge wire, I have to fasten it down, but everything else is fastened down. And then we'll get all that finished up, we'll get that wire done, and then he'll be able to run everything like he's supposed to. Okay, we've run the cable back down, and we used two 25-foot 30 amp cords. That's usually what I like to use because it's insulated with an outer jacket and the wire itself was insulated. So we got that on, but it was short because of the location of everything in here. So we used another 25 footer and split in two to get my last little bit. I do have a junction box here. It's all fastened. Also, I have my rubber O-rings in here. Keeps that watertight. Them are in there nice and tight on both sides. So I got to push that one in a little more. But you can tell I've got O-rings. That creates a watertight seal. It's not going to leak. Water's not going to get in. The junction box is easily accessible if he ever needs to get into here for any reason. And anytime you take on 110 wires like this and you have where you have to splice them together, it has to be in a junction box. So what I have to do is crawl underneath and secure the rest of the wires down. Let me show you on the other side where I've already went through the floor and show you kind of how I did that. Okay, I've just got my cord across here. I don't have it fastened over here yet. But what I did is I drilled 2 holes here through the floor and everything. As you can tell, I got a pipe that's coming through. I didn't want to use this. So here's a block off plate that once we move these wires out, that's going to block that hole off there. Let me show you basically how I made these. Okay, what I have is 3/4 inch pipe. I glue this and everything. And I put a coupler on one end. And I glue it. I slide it through my floor. And then I mark on the pipe where I need to cut. Then I cut the pipe short. Glue this end on there. So therefore, that's going through the floor. With the rubber O-ring here on this bottom side, it's going to keep it watertight. It's plastic, it's not going through any metal. Rubber O-ring here on the top side too, just so the wire doesn't rub on there. And that's done. Perfect pass through. It's sealed and it's going to work. Basically what I did is I installed 2 solar panels, charge controller, and a breaker box. But then once we noticed he had 12-2 wire running from the inverter to the panels, and that would explain why he was all the time tripping breakers, because the wire was too small. So we upgraded the wire going all the way back. What I used was 30 amp cord. So I got that put in. Another thing that we did, he had number 2. This is number 2, not 2/0, but number 2 wire for a jumper between his batteries. These batteries are 6-volt AGMs. So I eliminated number 2. We have 2/0 here is what I made with the jumper here. Installed the shunt. Still got to tie up a couple wires here, but I got this shunt all installed, hooked up. Inverter all back in and mounted. Breaker box there. The battery cables from the inverter actually go through bulkheads here instead of directly through where it could get cut on metal. I've got my homemade bulkheads here with the rubber garment inside there. Keeps that wire from coming in and out. It's watertight, it's sealed. Okay, and one thing that we had to do on here, because of the location of the breaker box, the wire was actually too short with the cables, so I had to put a junction box in to tie in. And as you can see, I have the junction box mounted up here. The wires are fastened. Also on both sides where the wire comes in is a rubber garment. Keeps it watertight so it doesn't leak or nothing. And then in here, where we brought the wires up, as I showed you earlier, with the pipe that goes through, we made a plate. We got that sealed up. The wires are running, fastened. Got his backdrop back down in and screwed in. So let me take you and show you the panels now the panels are completed. Like I said, I do have to seal around all the screw holes, but all of that's done. Like I said, all I got to do is seal that. Okay, we have one 320 watt panel there, and the other one is right here. It's wired in series. I do have to come up and reseal around all these screw heads and around all these so it doesn't leak. And then this portion is done.
Looks like this shit got hot in a few spots too.
Yeah.
Fucking A, dude. I'm so glad I didn't burn the coach to the ground.
Yeah.
That's so fucking bad.
Okay, and that's the number 12 wire that was run. We found a couple of spots where it's gotten hot on the wire. That doesn't work. Number 12 carries a maximum amperage of 20 amps. If it would have been number 10, it could carry the 30 amps. But 12.2 can only carry 20. That don't work. So we got that changed. Like I said, the only thing I got left is to seal this roof, clean up the electronics bay, vacuum that up. We did one other thing. With his coach battery being so close to the house battery, with the Victron battery monitor, the 712, it can monitor 2 battery setups. So we can monitor the chassis battery and the house battery at the same time. I'll show you how I have the meter in. Okay, I have the meter up in here, and chassis batteries 12.7. We're pulling 3.5 amps. So we have him all finished up. I'm going to finish up a couple little things. Luna is telling us bye. Luna, you going to tell us bye? Come here, Luna. What do we tell them, Luna? Say please like and subscribe and give me that thumbs up. I'll see you all in the next video.